Why do we choose to sin? This question has puzzled philosophers, theologians and thinkers for centuries, and perhaps it's one that you've pondered yourself. It's a complex topic, rife with moral, societal and individual implications, and it's one that we'll be delving into today. Consider the biblical story of Abraham, a tale as old as time. Abraham, a man of faith, was commanded by God to sacrifice his beloved son. He obeyed, took his son to the desert, and raised his knife. But at the last moment, God intervened, revealing that it was only a test of faith. This narrative, filled with tension and moral dilemmas, paints a vivid picture of the struggles we face in life. In many ways, we are all Abraham. We navigate through a world that often feels like a desert, filled with trials and tribulations. We raise our proverbial knives, making tough decisions, often guided by forces that seem out of our control. And just like Abraham, we are often left wondering if our struggles, our sacrifices are just tests, or if they're indicative of a more profound dysfunction in our world. Every day we see scenes that underscore this dysfunction. People without homes overdose in the streets, while our hard-earned tax dollars are funneled into foreign conflicts. Our beautiful planet, represented here by the burning lands of Maui, suffers as we prioritize war over preservation. Roads crumble under the weight of neglect, and tent cities spring up, a stark reminder of the growing divide between the haves and the have-nots. But why? Why do we choose to sin? Why do we turn our backs on those who need us most, allowing our world to descend into chaos? Is it because we were told we are forgiven, absolved of our transgressions, and thus feel free to sin? Or is it something deeper, something intrinsic to our human nature? And yet, amidst this chaos, there is hope. Reach out your hand to those in need. Pray, not just for divine intervention, but for the strength to make a difference. To stand up against the injustices in our world, to turn our backs on sin, not out of fear of divine retribution, but because it's the right thing to do. To summarize, life is filled with struggles and injustices, much like Abraham's ordeal in the desert. We see these injustices every day, in the form of poverty, environmental destruction, and societal neglect. And while we may be tempted to sin, to turn our backs on the problems of the world, we have the power to make a difference. So, the call to action is clear. Reach out, stand up, make a difference. Because the world needs you now more than ever. It's not about being forgiven for our sins, but about choosing not to sin in the first place. It's about creating a world where the struggles of the desert are replaced by the promise of an oasis. So why do we choose to sin? Perhaps the better question is, why wouldn't we choose to do good?